The morning sun rose slowly over New Kepler, painting the mining colony in soft golden light. The workers were just beginning their day, machines hummed, dust floated in the air, and the sky was clear and calm. For a few peaceful minutes, it felt like any other day on the edge of human space. Then the ground shook. At first, people thought it was another minor quake from the mining tunnels. But then, a deep rumble came from the sky. The sound grew louder and louder, until a blinding flash split the horizon. The first explosion tore through the colony's communication tower, turning it into a shower of burning metal. Marcus Hale, the colony's administrator, dove behind a concrete barrier as another blast hit nearby. He wasn't a soldier. He had never even held a gun before this day, but now survival was all that mattered. Sparks rained down as the sky filled with dark shapes. Alien ships, sleek and sharp like blades, descended through the clouds. Their hulls shimmered black like obsidian, marked with red symbols that glowed like fire. A second explosion threw Marcus backward. He covered his head as debris rained around him. Through the dust, Elena Ward, head of security, sprinted toward him. Her uniform was torn, one arm bleeding, but her eyes burned with focus. "Marcus," she shouted over the noise, "the outer defenses are gone. They hit everything at once." Marcus pushed himself up, coughing through the smoke. "Can we contact the fleet? Anyone?" Elena shook her head grimly. "Comms are dead. They took out the tower first." For a moment the only sound was the burning wind. Then another explosion. The colony's power generator, gone. The people of New Kepler were trapped. Overhead, the alien ships, Vexor craft, according to the first desperate reports, moved in perfect formation. They didn't act like pirates or raiders. They moved like a trained army. "Get everyone to the shelters." Marcus shouted into his broken radio. Only static answered. He slammed his fist against it. "Damn it." From across the compound, Torres, the chief engineer, ran toward them. "The defense grid's gone," he yelled. They burned through the shields like paper. The three of them ducked as another plasma bolt hit nearby, throwing up dirt and flame. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Marcus's mind raced. They had only a few weak defensive turrets, built to scare off pirates, not a full-scale invasion. He looked toward the nearby mountains. Somewhere down there were the old mining tunnels, deep and strong. Maybe they could hide people there. "Elena, how many made it to the shelters?" he asked, his voice tight. "Maybe 800, she said, checking her weapon's power cell. "But the blast doors won't close. Power's gone." Torres wiped sweat from his face. "I can try rerouting through the backup grid, but I'll need time." "Then buy it," Marcus said. "Get down there, take whoever you can, and get that system working. Elena and I will hold the line." Torres nodded once and ran, disappearing into the smoke. The next moment, a deep, cold voice filled the air, coming from the alien ships themselves. It spoke perfect human language, but with a metallic echo that chilled the blood. "Humans of New Kepler," the voice said. "You are now property of the Vexor Empire. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and you will suffer." Marcus clenched his jaw. Around him, a few surviving colonists looked to him, their faces pale, eyes full of fear. He picked up a fallen rifle, checked its charge, and said quietly, "We fight. We fight for every minute we can." Elena nodded. "Then let's make them earn every inch." They set up a small barricade behind a line of containers. A few others joined them, miners, engineers, civilians with trembling hands holding old weapons. The Vexor soldiers advanced through the burning colony, tall and armored, their weapons glowing with blue light. From her command ship, Commander Valera watched with satisfaction. Her armor shone black under the burning sky. She spoke to her lieutenant, voice calm and cruel. "These humans resist," she said. "Brave but foolish. Take prisoners for the markets. Kill the rest." The Vexor troops moved like a machine, cutting down anything that moved. Marcus fired until his rifle overheated. Elena's aim was sharp, precise, each shot slowing the enemy advance for seconds at a time. But there were too many. Behind them, the sound of screams and collapsing structures filled the air. The defenders were falling one by one. A young miner named Rick stumbled beside Marcus, hit by a stray blast. He fell hard, clutching his side. "Go!" Rick gasped. "Leave me." Marcus shook his head, dragging him behind cover. "No one gets left behind. Not today." Elena threw her last grenade and reloaded. "We can't hold this position," she shouted. Marcus looked around, fire, smoke, bodies. The colony was dying. They retreated behind the last wall near the command center. Elena's rifle finally sparked and died. She drew her sidearm and kept firing until it clicked empty. Silence followed, the kind that feels heavier than sound. In the distance, Valera's army marched forward through the ruins. Victory was certain. Marcus lowered his weapon slowly. He looked up through the haze at the burning sky. "No one is coming," he said softly. Elena turned to him, her face streaked with dust and ash. Before she could answer, a distant rumble rolled across the clouds, low, deep, like thunder far away. Both of them froze. "What was that?" Elena whispered. Marcus stared upward. The smoke twisted in the wind. The sound came again, a roar from somewhere deep in the void above. For the first time in hours, a spark of something, not fear but hope, flickered in his eyes. "Fade out." Narrator, soft, suspenseful tone. Just when it seemed humanity was finished, something was moving in the darkness above New Kepler. The sound of thunder faded, leaving only smoke and silence behind. For a few long seconds, Marcus thought he had imagined it, a trick of the wind or maybe just his mind refusing to accept the truth. But Elena had heard it too. Her eyes searched the clouds, wide and uncertain. Nothing moved up there. Only ash and fire. Then another explosion shook the ground, this time from the colony's eastern sector. The Vexor were advancing again. The last human defenses were falling apart. Marcus ducked behind a half-collapsed wall, pressing his back against the cool concrete. His lungs burned from smoke. Every breath hurt. He turned his radio on again, just static. "Torres," he whispered, "you'd better be alive." In the tunnels. Far below the surface, Torres and two miners crawled through a narrow maintenance shaft, carrying the last working power cells. The air was hot and filled with dust. Each step echoed through the metal corridor. One of the miners, a young woman named Sarah, asked softly, "Do you think anyone will come?" Torres didn't answer right away. He looked at the power cells, then at the old emergency beacon sitting in front of them, a huge, rust-covered machine from the early colonial days. It hadn't been used in years. "If the signal gets out," he finally said, "maybe someone will hear it. That's all that matters." Sarah swallowed hard and nodded. They began connecting the power lines. Sparks flashed. The old beacon hummed weakly, its lights flickered but stayed dim. Torres hit the side of the console. "Come on, old girl," he muttered. "Just one more time." The machine gave a low whine, then a steady hum. The small display lit up, signal ready. A small smile touched Torres's face. "She's alive." He pressed the transmit key. The antenna above them, buried deep inside the tunnel rock, extended slowly and began sending a faint pulse into space, a soft rhythmic beacon calling for help. He leaned against the wall, exhausted. "Now we wait," he said. On the surface, Elena fired her last charged shot and ducked as a plasma bolt smashed into the wall beside her. The air shimmered with heat. "We're running out of everything," she said. Marcus nodded. He looked across the field. The alien soldiers were closing in, their armor gleaming in the firelight. "We just need to hold them a little longer," he said quietly. "For what?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew. They were waiting for a miracle, and miracles were rare in the cold emptiness of space. A distant voice echoed through the burning ruins, "Commander Valera again." "Humans," her voice boomed, cold and sharp, "your resistance is meaningless. Surrender now and I may let some of you live." Marcus raised his weapon and fired at her image on the distant projection screen. "Not today." Inside Valera's command ship, Valera watched the battlefield through a holographic map. The human signals were weak, only a few defenders left. "Pathetic," she said. "End this." Her lieutenant bowed. "Yes, Commander." But before he could move, a small alert flashed on the screen. A faint transmission, human code, coming from deep underground. Valera frowned. "What is that?" "An old distress beacon," the lieutenant replied. "It's too weak to reach beyond the system." Valera smirked. "Let them scream into the void. No one is listening." She turned away. "Finish them." Back in the tunnels. The beacon pulsed steadily, sending its fragile signal into the stars. Torres slumped against the console, breathing heavily. He looked at Sarah. "It's running. That's all we can do." Then a violent tremor shook the tunnel. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The power cell sparked. Sarah screamed. "They're bombing the surface again." Torres grabbed the panel, steadying it. "Hold together." Another explosion tore open part of the wall. Light burst through as heat and debris filled the chamber. Torres pushed Sarah behind him. "Go." deeper into the tunnels. What about you? I'll follow, just go. He turned back to the beacon. The power flickered again. Come on, he whispered. Stay alive. The screen blinked, signal lost connection, weak output. He slammed his fist against the control pad. No. Don't die now. Then a faint light returned. The output bar rose by a fraction. The signal was still transmitting, weak but alive. Taurus smiled, barely standing. That's it. Keep talking to the stars. He collapsed beside the machine, half-conscious as dust settled over him. In orbit, far, far away. Beyond the edge of the new Kepler system, space was silent. But through that silence, a faint pulse traveled, weak, almost invisible. It moved past asteroid fields, through dark nebulae, across the cold emptiness between the stars. And somewhere out there, in the black sea of space, a listening array caught the echo. A green light blinked on a console inside an old Terran patrol ship, the HSS Resolute. Inside the bridge, an officer looked up from his screen. Captain, you need to see this. Captain Renner stepped forward. His eyes narrowed as he read the faint transmission. It's a human distress signal, he said softly. Origin. New Kepler colony. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. That system's deep in the frontier, one officer said. Too far for a distress call to survive this long. Renner stared at the signal again. It flickered, weak but steady. Someone out there is still alive, he said. Then after a pause his voice hardened. Plot a course. We're going to find them. The crew hesitated. Sir, we're alone out here. If it's the Vexor. Then we'll remind them, Renner said, eyes cold, why humanity still owns the stars. Back on New Kepler. Marcus leaned against the wall, barely standing. The battle was almost over. The colony was gone. Elena sat beside him, reloading her last sidearm. Her hands trembled from exhaustion. Maybe it's better this way, she whispered. At least we tried. Marcus looked toward the sky one more time, a sky filled with smoke and death. But somewhere deep down he felt it again, that faint vibration in the air. Like a heartbeat, distant but growing stronger. He didn't know why, but he smiled. Someone heard us, he said quietly. I can feel it. Elena frowned. You're dreaming, Marcus. Maybe, he said. But sometimes, dreams answer back. The wind howled through the ruins as the camera slowly rose above the burning colony, into the black sky. Far beyond the stars, the HSS Resolute ignited its engines, a bright flare cutting through darkness. Narrator's soft tone. A signal born in the ashes of a dying world had crossed the void. And somewhere in that endless night, humanity was listening. Fade to black. In the endless black of space, a faint pulse drifted, weak, broken, almost lost. It carried a message from a dying world. New Kepler's beacon was still alive, whispering through the void. Far across the stars, the patrol ship HSS Resolute caught that whisper. On board the HSS Resolute, the bridge was dimly lit, filled with the soft hum of machines. Captain Elias Renner stood beside the main screen, his eyes locked on the faint green signal flickering across it. Can you clean it up? He asked. Lieutenant Harris, the ship's comms officer, adjusted the controls. The static faded slightly, revealing fragments of the message. Broken words, desperate tones, screams cut short. New Kepler, civilians, need help. The sound stopped, replaced by silence. Harris swallowed. It's bad, sir. That colony's supposed to be peaceful. Mining and agriculture only. No weapons. Renner nodded slowly. And that's why someone thought they could attack it. He turned to the navigation console. Distance. 16 light hours from our current position. 2 jumps, maybe 3 if the warp lanes are unstable. The ship's helmsman, Chief Navarro, looked up. Sir, if the attackers are still there. Renner cut him off. Then we'll find out what they are. He stared at the signal again, his jaw tightening. Human distress beacons didn't lie. Someone down there was fighting for their life. Prepare for jump, he ordered quietly. Set a course for New Kepler. The journey begins. The Resolute's engines glowed a deep blue as it aligned with the jump corridor. Outside, the stars stretched into thin white lines as the ship entered warp. Inside the bridge, the crew worked in silence. Every face was tense. Everyone had seen the same footage. Colonies burned, people screaming, the signal fading into static. Harris spoke again. Sir, I checked the records. New Kepler reported no pirate activity in months. Whoever attacked them, it's not local. Renner nodded. Could be one of the outer systems. Or something new. He looked out at the swirling blue light beyond the viewport. Something brave enough to attack humans this deep into our space, he said quietly. That's new indeed. Meanwhile, on New Kepler, smoke still covered the colony. The air was thick with ash and silence. Marcus and Elena hid inside the wreck of a storage building with a handful of survivors. Everywhere else, the Vexor soldiers moved through the ruins, scanning for life signs. Elena whispered, "They're hunting survivors." Marcus nodded. His hands trembled as he held his pistol, almost out of charge. "We just need to last a little longer," he said. Elena gave him a tired smile. "You said that an hour ago." Marcus didn't answer. He stared toward the northern sky, where the faint rumble had come from earlier. The noise was gone now, replaced by the cold wind. Deep inside, though, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something big. In the dark between stars. The Resolute's crew sat in the mess hall, silent except for the soft hum of the ship. They had all heard the recording, those broken words from New Kepler. Lieutenant Harris leaned forward. "Sir, I still don't get it. Why attack a colony with no military value?" Captain Renner sipped his coffee, eyes distant. "Fear," he said. "If you want to break humanity, you don't strike the strongholds. You hit the small ones, the peaceful ones. You make people feel alone." A young ensign, Rika, asked softly, "You think it's the Vexor, sir?" Renner nodded slowly. "Reports said they were expanding again. Testing our borders. Maybe they finally decided to step over the line." He set the cup down and looked around the room. "We can't fight a war alone," he said. "But we can save those people." A quiet determination spread through the crew. They weren't part of a large fleet, just one old patrol ship. But that was enough. Humanity didn't run from its own. The signal weakens. Hours passed. The signal from New Kepler began to fade. On the bridge, Harris frowned at his screen. "Sir, we're losing the beacon. It's getting weaker." Renner stepped closer. "How long until it's gone?" "Minutes, maybe. Power's failing on their end." Renner's voice hardened. "Increase engine output. Push the reactor if you have to." Navarro hesitated. "Sir, that'll overheat the coils." "I said push it." The engines roared louder. The deck trembled as the Resolute surged through the last stretch of warp. Outside, the stars blurred faster and faster. Inside the captain's cabin, Renner stared at an old photo, a small family smiling in front of another colony world long ago. His jaw tightened. He whispered to himself, "No one gets left behind." On New Kepler, the last stand. Commander Valera stood atop the wreckage of the colony's command tower, her armor glowing faint red. The air shimmered with heat from the fires. Her soldiers had rounded up what few humans were left. "Search the tunnels," she ordered. "Finish it. This world is ours now." She looked up at the dark sky. "Let this be a message to their kind. The age of humanity is ending." The arrival. The Resolute tore out of warp space like a thunderstorm unleashed. A shockwave rippled across the void as its hull flared with blue light. Visual range in 30 seconds. Harris called out, "We're entering the New Kepler system." Renner stood straight, his face unreadable. "All hands to battle stations." The crew snapped to their stations. Alarms blared softly across the ship. Outside, the red planet of New Kepler appeared, scarred, burning, broken. As the Resolute closed in, scanners lit up with dozens of unknown contacts. Navarro's voice shook. "Sir, alien ships. Whole fleet in orbit." Renner's eyes narrowed. "So it is the Vexor." He straightened his uniform and gave the only order that mattered. "Charge all weapons. Bring the ship into attack position." He looked out at the burning planet ahead. "Let's show them," he said softly, "what happens when you hurt our people." The Resolute's engines roared, cutting through the void like a living storm. Narrator, rising tone. Across the darkness of space, the message had been heard. Humanity was coming, and the void itself trembled. Fade to black. Black Vexor warships hung above it like dark blades, their hulls pulsing with crimson light. They had crushed the colony, torn down its defenses, silenced its people. No help had come. No signal had answered. Until now. The edge of the battlefield. In orbit's cold shadow, the HSS Resolute emerged from warp. Space rippled around her hull, blue flames flickered across her engines like wings. For a long moment, no one spoke on the bridge. Before them stretched the wreckage of New Kepler, ruined stations, drifting debris, and dozens of Vexor ships patrolling like predators. Lieutenant Harris whispered, "My God." Captain Elias Renner stared at the scene, his face calm but hard as iron. "Comms," he said. Any human signals left? Harris shook his head. Only background noise. The beacon's gone. Renner nodded slowly. Then we make some noise of our own. He turned to his crew. Weapons live. Shields up. Plot a course straight into orbit. The bridge filled with the steady rising hum of power. The Resolute was smaller than any of the alien cruisers, an old patrol ship, built for border runs and rescue work. But she had one thing they didn't, a crew who refused to run. Down on the surface, Marcus, Elena, and a handful of survivors crouched deep inside the mining tunnels. They had been listening to the sky, the silence, the distant thunder, the fear. Then came a new sound, low, deep, powerful. A roar that wasn't thunder but something far greater. Elena looked up, her eyes wide. "What is that?" Marcus didn't answer. He stepped out from the tunnel shadow and stared toward the heavens. Through the cracks of the burning clouds, a bright blue light flashed, distant at first, then growing stronger. And with it came a single echoing sound that made the ground tremble. A human engine. Marcus whispered, "No way, they actually came." The enemy reacts. In orbit, the Vexor fleet turned. Their commander, Valera, stood aboard her flagship, a massive vessel covered in crimson armor and curved spikes. "Contact detected," one of her officers hissed. "Unknown signature, human design." Valera's eyes narrowed. A warship. Small class. Outdated model. No support craft detected. The alien commander smirked, her voice cold and sharp. "Then destroy it. Show them what happens to those who defy the Vexor Empire." The alien fleet turned as one, forming a wall of dark metal and glowing weapons. First strike. On board the Resolute, alarms screamed as dozens of hostile locks appeared on the screens. Enemy ships moving to intercept. Harris shouted. "They're charging weapons." Renner's eyes stayed fixed on the burning planet below. "Helm, bring us in." "Weapons, full power to forward batteries." "Sir, we're outnumbered 20 to 1. Renner didn't flinch. "Then we'll aim carefully." The crew held their breath as the first wave of plasma fire tore through space, red streaks cutting across the void. The Resolute rolled sharply to port, diving between the glowing lines of death. Explosions flashed around her hull, shaking the deck. Minor damage to outer hull. Harris called out. "Return fire," Renner ordered. The ship's cannons roared to life, white-blue bolts tearing through the dark. One of the smaller Vexor frigates exploded instantly, turning into a cloud of molten debris. Cheers erupted across the bridge. Renner's voice remained calm. "That's one. Keep going." The heartbeat of humanity. In the tunnels below, the survivors heard it, faint at first, then clear. A deep, rhythmic thunder echoing from above. The sound of engines. The sound of war. Marcus gripped Elena's arm, eyes shining with tears. "That's them," he said. "That's our people up there." Elena laughed through the smoke and exhaustion. "Then we fight with them." They gathered their weapons, old rifles, scavenged tools, and prepared to defend what was left of their home. Back in orbit, Valera's fleet swarmed around the Resolute, beams of red fire lighting up the black. Every blast that missed ripped through the debris field, scattering fire and ash. "Shields at 40%. Harris yelled. Renner's voice stayed level. "Divert auxiliary power. Helm, take us under their formation." The Resolute dove, engines burning bright. A missile streaked past her tail and detonated against an asteroid, lighting up the sky. "Target their command ship," Renner ordered. "Load the railgun." Navarro hesitated. "Sir, we'll have one shot. After that." Renner gave a short nod. "Then let's make it count." The railgun charged, light crackling across its length. Energy readings spiked off the charts. "Target locked," Harris shouted. Renner leaned forward, eyes cold. "Fire." The Resolute shuddered as the projectile launched, a blazing spear of metal wrapped in electromagnetic fire. It tore through space, straight into Valera's flagship. The alien ship's shields flared red, then shattered like glass. The rail slug punched through the hull, erupting in a chain of explosions that ripped the vessel apart. The entire crew of the Resolute cheered as the alien flagship disintegrated into a field of fire. Valera's last scream was swallowed by static. The tide turns. The remaining Vexor ships faltered, their formation breaking, their weapons dimming. Some began to retreat. Others fired blindly in rage. Renner gave one final order. "Finish it." The Resolute's guns lit the sky, bursts of blue and white fire painting the darkness. One by one, the alien ships vanished in burning silence. When the last explosion faded, only wreckage remained, drifting metal glowing like dying stars. Aftermath. Silence filled the bridge. Harris exhaled slowly. All targets destroyed. Navarro whispered, "We did it?" Renner stood still, staring at the red world below. Then he said softly, "Send a message to the surface. Tell them, they're not alone anymore." A new Kepler. The clouds broke open, revealing the stars, and a single ship gliding above them, shining bright like a guardian. Marcus and Elena stood outside the tunnels, looking up in awe. Elena whispered, "That's our warship." Marcus smiled through tears. "That's humanity." Above them the HSS Resolute hovered, scarred, smoking but alive. And as its engines flared against the night sky, the void itself seemed to roar in defiance. Narrator low proud tone. "They thought no one would come. They thought humanity would stay silent. But from the depths of the void, we came roaring back." Fade to black. The sky above New Kepler was no longer red. The smoke had thinned, and the burning clouds had turned to drifting ash. For the first time in days, sunlight touched the colony again. The war was over, at least for now. Silence after the storm. Marcus stood among the ruins of the main compound. Broken metal, scorched walls, and blackened earth stretched as far as he could see. The smell of fire still lingered, mixing with dust and smoke. He felt the weight of silence pressing down, the kind that comes only after screams fade. Around him, the few remaining colonists moved slowly, helping the wounded, searching the rubble. Elena approached, her uniform torn, her hair streaked with ash. "They're clearing the tunnels," she said softly. "We found about 600 alive." Marcus nodded, relief flickering across his tired face. 600, he repeated. "Out of almost 1,000. He looked at the crater where the generator once stood. That was where Torres had gone, the engineer who had risked everything to activate the beacon. Elena followed his gaze and sighed. "He didn't make it, did he?" Marcus shook his head. "No. But because of him, they came." They both turned their eyes skyward, where the HSS Resolute still hovered high above, scarred and silent. The ship in the sky. Aboard the Resolute, Captain Elias Renner stood on the observation deck. Through the glass, the planet looked peaceful, a lie painted over blood and ruin. "Damage reports?" he asked quietly. Lieutenant Harris replied, "Severe. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Weapons down to 30% capacity. Half our systems are offline." Renner nodded, his expression unreadable. "And the crew?" 22 wounded. 4 dead." The captain closed his eyes for a moment. "They'll be honored. Every one of them." He turned his gaze toward the red horizon below. "Prepare a shuttle. I'm going down. Ground meeting." The shuttle touched down amid the ruins of the colony. Marcus and Elena watched as the hatch opened and Captain Renner stepped out, wearing a dark uniform burned at the edges. He looked around, at the broken buildings, the exhausted survivors, the faces that still carried both fear and hope. "Captain Renner," Marcus said, stepping forward. "I'm Marcus Hale, Colony Administrator. Thank you for—" Renner raised a hand gently. "Don't thank me. Thank your people. You held out long enough for us to get your signal." Marcus nodded slowly. "A lot of good people didn't make it." Renner looked around the ruins again. "Neither did a lot of mine." For a long moment neither spoke. Only the wind moved through the ashes, whispering through shattered glass and twisted steel. Burial and memory. By evening they had gathered all they could, both human and alien dead. The colonists worked in silence, burying their fallen in long, shallow rows beneath the open sky. Elena stood beside a fresh grave, holding a small metal tag in her hand. It belonged to Torres, the man who had gone into the tunnels and never returned. Marcus placed a stone at the foot of the grave. "He gave us hope when we had none." Elena nodded. "He believed someone would hear us." Above them, the Resolute passed silently overhead, its shadow sweeping across the ground like the wing of a guardian. Renner stood apart, watching the people below. For the first time in years he felt something heavy in his chest, pride mixed with sorrow. These colonists, these civilians, had fought with nothing but courage. And somehow they had survived. Echoes in the stars. Far beyond New Kepler, deep in the void, a fleet drifted in silence. The survivors of the Vexor Armada had escaped the battle, their ships broken and their pride shattered. Inside the command chamber of a damaged cruiser, a new voice spoke, cold and sharp. "We underestimated them," said High Commander Sereth, her scaled hand clenched into a fist. "One human ship destroyed our flagship. One." An aide hesitated. "Should we report this defeat to the Council?" Sareth turned, her eyes glowing red. Report? No. Prepare for war. Her voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. Let them think they are safe. Let them rebuild. Because next time, we will not come alone. The rebuild. Days passed. The colony began to rise from the ashes. Survivors repaired generators, cleared debris, and planted the first crops again. Children's laughter slowly returned, faint, uncertain, but real. Marcus stood on the ridge above the settlement, watching lights flicker back on one by one. Elena joined him, holding a small data pad. Command says the Resolute will stay in orbit for another week, to help with supplies. Marcus smiled faintly. It's strange. For a moment I thought we were forgotten. Now, it feels like maybe humanity hasn't given up on us. Elena looked at the stars. Or maybe we reminded them what we're worth. Farewell. When the Resolute finally prepared to leave, the entire colony gathered outside to watch. The ship's engines burned blue against the night sky, casting long shadows across the sand. Captain Renner's voice came over the comms, steady and proud. To the people of New Kepler, you stood when others would have fallen. You proved that humanity doesn't need to be many to be mighty. Wherever the void takes us next, we will carry your story with us. Marcus saluted, his hand trembling. Elena whispered, they came for us. They really came. The ship rose higher, engines flaring brighter, then vanished into the darkness between the stars. Closing scene. That night, Marcus stood alone on the roof of the rebuilt command tower. He looked up at the sky, now clear and endless. The void was silent once, he murmured. But not anymore. He turned to see Elena smiling behind him. No, she said. Now it remembers us. The stars shimmered above them, cold, ancient, and watching. And somewhere, far beyond their sight, the echoes of a human warship still rolled through the endless dark. Narrator, soft, reflective tone. They thought no help would come. They thought the void would swallow us. But the void still carries our roar. And humanity is listening. Fade out. The stars of the outer rim burned cold and distant. Beyond the red planet New Kepler, silence had returned, but it was not peace. In the dark between worlds, something was moving. Something angry. Something vast. The Vexor regroup. In the shattered remains of the Vexor fleet, a new armada was being built. Shipyards glowed red beneath dying suns. Factories worked without rest, forging new weapons, larger cruisers, and darker engines. High Commander Sareth stood before the holographic map of human space. Her armor gleamed like liquid obsidian, her eyes cold and merciless. New Kepler was an insult, she said. The humans humiliated us. This time we erased them, all of them. Her officers bowed low. One of them spoke, voice trembling. High Commander, their technology, it advanced faster than we expected. The human warship. Sareth turned sharply, her voice like a blade. One warship. One ship destroyed our fleet. Imagine what their empire hides behind that silence. That is why we strike first. She raised a hand and the map flared red. Target, Sol System. Primary objective, cripple the human fleet before they can respond. The war drums of the Vexor Empire began to beat again. The calm before the storm. Weeks later, at Earth's outer defense ring, the stars shimmered like silver dust. The Sol Defense Command floated quietly, hundreds of stations linked together around the blue planet below. Inside Command Station Argent, Admiral Sarah Whitmore stared at the endless sky. Still no word from the frontier? She asked. Her aide shook his head. No, ma'am. The Resolute's last transmission came from New Kepler. Then silence. Whitmore frowned. Silence from a ship that fought off a Vexor fleet? That's not good news. She turned to the comm officer. Increase long-range scans. If they're coming back, I want to know before they arrive. The officer nodded. Yes, Admiral. The room fell quiet again, the quiet that comes right before thunder. The shadows arrived. In the outer system beyond Neptune, space began to ripple. At first, the sensors read it as static, a flicker, a distortion. Then came the reality, hundreds of Vexor ships dropping out of warp, their hulls glowing crimson like open wounds. Their engines burned like fire in the dark. Contact. Multiple contacts, shouted a voice on the bridge. Too many to count. Whitmore froze for only a second, then barked orders. All stations, battle alert. Raise shields, charge weapons. Get every ship into position. The alarm klaxon screamed through the fleet. Earth's defense ships began to move, sleek silver vessels aligning like a wall of light against the incoming storm. The first strike. The Vexor Armada advanced in perfect formation. High Commander Sareth stood at the command window of her flagship, a massive warship called the Harbinger. "Begin the purge," she ordered. 1,000 beams of red plasma erupted from the alien fleet. They struck the outer human ships, tearing through shields, scattering debris into the void. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. Admiral Whitmore gritted her teeth. "Return fire." The human fleet responded, hundreds of blue beams cutting across space, colliding with alien armor in a storm of light and energy. The void burned. Familiar roar. On the edge of the battle, a small warp gate opened, just a faint spark at first. Then, with a blinding flash, a single ship emerged from the distortion. The HSS Resolute. Its hull was scarred, its engines scorched, but its flag still shone bright. Inside, Captain Elias Renner stood once again at the command deck. "Looks like we missed the party," he said calmly. Harris grinned. "Admiral Whitmore's signal is open, sir." "Put her through." Whitmore's voice came through static. "Renner? You're supposed to be halfway across the sector." Renner smiled faintly. "You know me, Admiral. Never on time, always ready." He turned to his crew. "Let's remind them what humanity sounds like." The Resolute's engines roared as it charged forward, straight into the heart of the alien fleet. The turning tide. The battle was chaos, red and blue light colliding, ships exploding, debris spinning through the void. But amidst it all, humanity held the line. The Resolute darted between the massive alien cruisers, firing rail slugs and plasma rounds with deadly precision. "Target the Harbinger," Renner ordered. A storm of fire cut across space as the human fleet concentrated its power on the Vexor flagship. Inside her ship, Sareth growled, "Focus all weapons on that human vessel. Destroy it." Her ship's guns flared, dozens of beams converging on the Resolute. But before they could strike, a new voice crackled over the comms. "Fleet command to all human vessels, reinforcements inbound." Renner frowned. Reinforcements? Then the stars behind them seemed to split open. Dozens of human ships, battleships, carriers, destroyers, dropped out of warp in perfect formation. Each one bearing the blue and white flag of Earth Fleet Command. At the center of them all was a colossal ship, the HSS Titan, Earth's most powerful dreadnought. Admiral Whitmore's voice thundered through every channel. "This is Earth Fleet. Engage all targets. No one attacks our home and walks away." The wrath of humanity. The Titan opened fire, beams of energy so bright they lit the dark like dawn. Alien ships shattered under the onslaught. One by one, the Vexor formation broke apart. Sareth screamed orders, her voice drowned by chaos. "Fall back. Fall back." But it was too late. The combined human fleet advanced, crushing the invaders in waves of light and thunder. Each explosion echoed across the system like the beating of a giant heart, the heartbeat of a united world. Renner's voice came over the comms, calm and steady. "For New Kepler. For the fallen. For every world they tried to burn." He gave the final order. "Fire." The Resolute's railgun lit once more, and its shot pierced straight through the Harbinger's core. Sareth's ship exploded in a burst of red fire, the shockwave tearing through the last of her fleet. The void fell silent again. Aftermath. When the smoke cleared, Earth hung bright and untouched. The human fleet drifted among the wreckage, battered but victorious. Admiral Whitmore stood on the bridge of the Titan, staring at the stars. "Send word," she said softly. "Let every colony know, we are still here. And we are not afraid." Final scene. Far away on New Kepler, Marcus looked up from the rebuilt colony square. The sky shimmered with blue light, the reflection of humanity's fleet returning home. Elena smiled beside him. "They came again," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "This time, we were ready." A distant rumble echoed across the sky, like thunder rolling through eternity. Narrator deep proud tone. "They thought humanity would hide in fear. They thought our silence meant surrender. But when darkness returned, humanity answered, with fire, with steel, and with unity." Fade to black. Text on screen, "The void still remembers."